loves. So the holidays are coming up. So I really wanted y'all to have some tools that you could take with you into the holidays, some things that could help make those family dinners or those church gatherings or those long car rides or what have you a little bit more tolerable and perhaps even more enjoyable this year. Like, I really want this year to be the year that you fully honor yourself and feel accepted in some new ways. And so I am going to give you some tips and some tricks, some things that you can start doing now to make that experience more positive. Because I think just about all of us have had at least one experience, probably a lot of experiences, in which we have been at perhaps a family gathering or a dinner, and we have just had our parents completely ignore us, completely ignore our needs, and we've tried to speak up for ourselves and just basically been pushed aside, either by the parent themselves or perhaps by a sibling or someone else telling us to just be a nice son or to, respect your mother or things like that, things that just dismiss who we are and what we need and ask us to put aside our concerns for the greater good or for this other person whose concerns or needs are somehow more important than ours in some way. I don't know. So anyway, I feel like there's a better choice for us. There is a choice that stems from self-love. There are choices that we can make that really honor who we are at our core. And I want to help you make some of those choices this year. So that's the goal of this video. Hopefully you will stick with me all the way to the end so that you can learn all the tips and the tricks and how to implement them. And if you really like this video and get something out of it, please go ahead and like it, give it that thumbs up. And I encourage you to subscribe as well, because I will continue to create videos like this that you hopefully will find very helpful as you navigate your world. All right, let's jump into it. And I have a list here, so you'll see me looking down for just a moment every once in a while. All right, so first up, embodied consent. I have talked about this concept quite a few times, so hopefully all of you know what it is by now. If you don't, I highly recommend that you start learning about embodied consent. And if you've already heard of it, it's not a bad idea to just review it a bit. Now, I have a whole video series on this, and this video series is full of very, very short videos. Most of them are about 3 minutes. So it only takes about 10, maybe 15 minutes to go through my entire video series on embodied consent. So I encourage you to go and check that out, give that a quick review or a rewatch or whatever, so that you can know more about what that is. And just a quick reminder, it is about just listening to your body and noticing what sensations are in your body when faced with a choice or a decision, so that you can make that decision from a place of knowledge, from a place of self-love and care, from this place where you are honoring your truth. And that's how you get to that consent. It also, I'm going to extend the invitation for this video that you listen to your body and just notice, what's going on. Notice when you're feeling discomfort in general as well. That's really important, and it can be really, really helpful when you are going to be in a place where you might be asked a lot of things that you're not typically asked on a day-to-day basis. So I encourage you, number one, to kind of review this embodied consent, and number two, to start practicing it everywhere, to start implementing this into your day-to-day life, or integrating this into your day-to-day life, So when you have a friend ask you if you want to go out for a drink, really checking in, listening to your body, and giving yourself that opportunity to say that honest yes or that honest no based on the sensations that you feel, based on the messages that you are receiving from within. Instead of just giving a default of yes or sure or whatever, but just really, really checking in. And of course, some of your friends might think that this is a little bit weird. And hey, that's the risk we run sometimes by being on the forefront of something that's important, something that can help change and shift the way our society sees self-love and self-care. So I personally think it's pretty worth it. So again, I encourage you to start doing that with like the kind of light things, like whether or not you want to go out to a bar. I guess it could be a harder decision depending on where you stand with alcohol in general, but also with things that might be, perhaps harder for you. Things around, whether or not you want to commit time to a certain thing or support a person in a certain way, like whatever comes up in your world over the next couple of days, I encourage you to really check in and see if you're up for doing whatever the thing is, or whether you're up for handing over whatever is requested, so that you can get into this practice in a space that is more comfortable for you and kind of ease into it, essentially at home, building up to a family trip or a gathering with a bunch of people who might be a bit more judgy. Start off with some good friends, some people who are more accepting, etc. Cool. Number 3, honor your truth. So, like really, really listen to yourself, and not only like notice the sensations, but state the things that are coming up for you, and, hold boundaries around them. You can decide that for yourself, it is going to be something that you always listen to. And that when you've stated that you're not going to do something because you've listened to your body, that you're going to hold that boundary and stick with that. Even if you receive some pushback, even if there's some resistance from a friend or a loved one, that you just hold that boundary. I really encourage you to honor yourself in that way. Now, to be fair, there may be some things throughout your week that you might, feel like you have to do in order to please someone who's incredibly important to you or who holds some power over you, such as an employer or perhaps a landlord. So, those kind of can be different situations. You can judge those as needed. But in terms of friends and like casual family members, etc., like I encourage you, I don't know why I said casual family members, that's kind of a weird term, but anyway, in terms of friends and family members who don't like directly hold your future over you, then I encourage you to really listen to your truth. Really honor yourself. Do what you need to do in order to take care of yourself, okay? Cool. Moving on to number 4, think about the choices that you'll have to make. So we've talked about like holding the boundaries as they come up, from moment to moment. And that can be a little bit challenging at home. And when you go off to a gathering, when you're with people who historically put a lot of pressure on you, like perhaps older family members or relatives, things like that, people who may have judged you in the past, perhaps old friends or whatever, then it can be more challenging to hold those boundaries. It can be easier for sure to slip back into those old habits, do the things that you've always done, and follow what's always been expected of you. That's understandable. Many of us have like a habit of just reverting back to who we were as kids when we were around our family, for better or for worse, becoming those same people. But this year, I invite you to do things differently because you're practicing ahead of time. So I encourage you to really think about some of the decisions that might come up. And it might be some like kind of casual or easy things, like, you might be given the choice of where to sit at the table, and you may not want to sit by certain people. So you could think about that in advance. There also might be like some decision about whether or not you go to game night, or whether or not you go out to brunch with the family. And if you're a person who likes to sleep in, then brunch might not seem so appealing. I encourage you this year to really think about that, to really check in with yourself ahead of time, so that when you get to that decision, when that day comes for brunch, it is much easier for you to say no. I've already decided that I wasn't going to go, or perhaps even to tell your friends or family members or whoever in advance that you're not up for brunch. That's not going to be your thing this year. You know, it can make it so much easier if you've already just addressed it, either internally or directly with the people, depending on what you think will best serve you. Cool. So like I said, just thinking about the choices that you'll have to make. It also can be things like whether or not you'll go to church. And for some families, that can be a really, really big thing. Your decision to not go to church on Sunday morning or on Saturday night or whenever the service is for you and your family can be something that people judge pretty heavily. There might be statements about your character, who you are becoming, how you are raising your children, etc., etc. So that can be a really tough decision. I encourage you to think about whether or not you want to do that far in advance, you know? Give yourself some time to warm up to the idea of saying no if you want to say no, or clearly saying yes if you're the person who is wanting to go to church and wanting to leave that bandwagon and invite others. You know, just being clear about what it is that you want and finding ways to honor yourself in that choice and stay close to that decision. You know, I think of it as almost like kind of like Marie Kondoing your life. You know, like it's kind of a silly way of thinking about it because you're not actually throwing anything out, but you are in a way just really noticing, like, am I being filled with joy by this thing, by this choice, by this decision, by the thoughts about what it will feel like when I play the game or when I go to brunch or when I have time in a church with my family. You know, just really thinking about that. And if it's not going to serve you, if it's not going to make you happy, not going to bring you joy, maybe it's something that you don't do. Maybe it's something that you can get rid of at this time in your life. At this point, maybe you're ready to do things differently. I really, really encourage you to check in and allow those maybes to be yeses or nos as appropriate for you. But give yourself some time to think about it. Give yourself some space when you're not in those high anxiety moments, when you're not there with someone hovering over you or waiting for you. Kind of give yourself that freedom to truly check in. That can be a beautiful, wonderful gift for yourself. All right, next thing, number 5, think about the things you've already said yes to. And this is kind of a doozy. It's a hard one. So in addition to anticipating some of the decisions that you might have to make with your family and with your friends or whoever, then I also encourage you to think about the decisions that you've already made, the things that you've already said yes to, and reevaluate those. Think about whether or not those were really the right choices for you, or if they remain the best choice for you. If you want that flexibility day of to decide whether or not you're going to brunch, even though you've already said yes to it, even though it might really disappoint your great aunt, even though it might mean that you won't get to see your cousin this year, whatever the case may be. I encourage you to really think about that and to honor your decision to change your mind. Now, in cuddle parties, one of the agreements, and I take this agreement with me into my Cuddle Up events as well, is that you always have the right to change your mind. And it's beautiful being in that space because people honor that, because people acknowledge that right, that ability. Now, that's not always the case in the real world, you know, outside of those precious walls where it's a safer space for exploring those types of things. People do often refer to people who change their minds as wishy-washy, or they might think that you're inconsistent or unreliable. Things like that. These judgy terms get thrown around a lot. That's the reality of the world that we live in. And in spite of that, I encourage you to really check in and consider whether or not the decisions that you made are still the ones that you want to stick with, and to change your mind if they're not. Now, some of the decisions might have some real consequences, like if you have told someone that you're going to help them with something, then they might be really upset if you choose not to help them. Or if you've made the decision to fly on a Tuesday and you decide that you want to fly out on Wednesday instead, then your airline might have some real financial consequences for you changing the date of your ticket. So those are things to think about, and kind of weigh the cost, benefits of those things. And I think it's a very useful tool. It's a very useful exercise to really think through these things. And if you're able to still change your mind, and if you're not, to use that information about what it felt like when you couldn't change your mind to inform your decisions in the future, to allow yourself to really check in about when you say yes and when you say no, and what that means for you, how you can move forward in a more empowered, clear way. And I have one last final bonus for you. I know I said 5, but I'm going to go ahead and give you a 6th tip, which is, affirm yourself. Yes. So when you do all of these things, all of these woo-woo things, like checking in with your body and listening for your yes and your no, it can be really empowering and helpful for you. Changing your mind can help you feel like a total freaking badass. And it might cause some people around you to feel like you're wishy-washy, to feel like you're not reliable, or like you've changed, or whatever the case may be. And I encourage you to affirm for yourself, within yourself, when you're alone or when you just have a moment to the side. I encourage you to affirm your decisions, to know that you are making choices that honor your truth. You are choosing self-care. You are deciding to lead from a place of love, to make decisions that uplift you, that empower you, that honor you as you are, and that is a good thing. So I affirm that about you. I'm grateful to be around people and interacting with people who are growing in magnificent ways, because it inspires me to continue my personal growth journey. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for loving who you love. Thank you for just being you. I appreciate you, and you're wonderful. And if you enjoyed this video, again, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, and please subscribe as well, because I would love to share more videos with you, and I would love to share videos with other folks as well who could benefit from some of these teachings and or reminders. All right. Oh, and if I didn't already say it, I'll link the embodied consent videos down below so that you'll have that information as well in the description. All right. Have a beautiful, wonderful day. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. All of that stuff. All right. Bye for now.